Bing, boing, bing. Everybody has a story to tell with Toddy One Skip.
Hey guys, this is Everybody Has a Story to Tell with Toddy One Skip. This is Toddy One Skip, and welcome to my channel. I didn't really know where to put this topic, to be honest with you. I went back and forth. Should it be on Issues with Toddy One Skip? Should it be on Everybody Has a Story to Tell with Toddy One Skip? So it landed here, and hopefully this is the place for this story because it doesn't have anything to do with the Whitakers, with the exception that they're in state's care right now, and that something happens in this story that's absolutely horrific with somebody in a nursing home. So, Hidden True Crime, I think we all know who they are. Hidden True Crime is with a husband and wife team. They handle so much. He's a doctor, or so, he's got his PhD in, the mental type, not physical type doctor. And she used to be a journalist, and she's still a journalist, but she used to be on a news show. You guys know who they are. They've handled all of the big cases, and they're a great podcast. They're a great channel to get any information from, and a great team. So anyway, I didn't hear anything about this case until I heard it from, from this couple. So anyway, let's hear this. This is incredibly sad. Just an incredibly sad case. And of course, I'm going to have to interrupt it, but if you guys want to hear it without me interrupting, go watch it on their channel. It's right here. I put their channel right here so you can see their channel the whole time. Hidden True Crime. But, I'm going to comment on it. So, because I have something to say about things like this. Unfortunately, it is so sad. The victim had been through so much in her life only to die like that. It was horrific. And then the perpetrator is a 95-year-old woman, supposedly with dementia. If we're to believe the story, what do you do with her? What's her punishment at 95 years old with dementia? Anyway, let's listen up.
Today's story is both heartbreaking and deeply troubling. And after we go over everything you need to know, we're going to have Dr. John Mathias, a criminal psychologist, come on to help us understand. So this story is about a woman who had already survived one of history's greatest atrocities, the Holocaust, only to lose her life decades later under horrifying circumstances inside what was supposed to be a place of care and safety. We're talking about the murder of 89-year-old Nina Krastoff, a Holocaust survivor.
So imagine having the memories of living through the Holocaust, having that either break you or build you. And it seems like it built this woman, if you hear, because she raised a kid on her own, and then to die in a place that's supposed to have care for people. And this is why I say, when people say the Whitakers are better off, really?
Originally from Ukraine, who was brutally beaten to death inside a Brooklyn nursing home this past September. Police say her roommate, a 95-year-old woman who had only just been admitted to the facility, is responsible. There is now newly released information about Nina's life, the night of the attack, the charges now facing the suspect, and many questions being raised about nursing home oversight and the care of dementia patients. And before this tragedy, Nina Krastoff had already lived through more.
So they bring in this woman, and they do it all the time. They have dementia patients go with other dementia patients, and they don't remember who they are. And then there's something that happens at night called night terrors with them, and there's something that happens at sunset. It's called sundowning, and they get violent and irritable. And there's only so much staff on call or in there trying to take care of people, and there's just not enough. There is simply just not enough for these older people to be safe. This is just a horrific story.
Than most of us can imagine. Born in Ukraine, she was just 5 years old when she and her family were forced into a ghetto during World War II. And most of her large family didn't survive. Nina did, in part because her 16-year-old sister caught the eye of the ghetto manager and was able to keep moving their names to the bottom of the deportation list.
So the ghetto was, they took people out of their homes and moved them into places that were less than, and then what they did was they unfortunately would herd people up and have them go to concentration camps. So apparently, as we know, there were lists of names, and she's saying that this woman's sister, who was 16 years old, um, made somebody care. Not, she might not have done anything. She just might have been attractive and made him, say, okay, well, I don't want anything to happen to them or their family, whatever it was. And here's the thing. They put Jewish people in ovens. We know this. But in the meantime, some of them were in love with some of the people, some of the Jewish people. They would sleep with them. They would have babies with them. They would ABUSE them in those concentration camps and in the ghettos, take advantage. And I just don't understand how even, and I'm glad that this woman was alive, not the way that she died later, but to have somebody follow suit with the extermination of people, and then to find something in one of those peoples, like, it's just, isn't that enough to say, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute? But then what do? You stand up, and then that's you next, or you just get killed by one of your own soldiers, right? Horrible, horrible.
And every time new Jewish people arrived, her family's names were pushed down. Those at the top were sent to concentration camps. Nina's family survived, but only barely. And after the war, Nina became a nurse in
Yeah,
Ukraine.
because let me tell you something. It wasn't, well, at that time, I don't need to tell you guys history, but you know damn well that the Jews that were in the ghettos weren't treated. I mean, they weren't being killed like that in the concentration camps, but their life in the ghetto was very limited and stifled, and yeah, horrific. Something to have and see as an 8-year-old child, and have that make who you are.
Her daughter Lucy as a single mother. Lucy has said, quote, she sacrificed.
So here's what I want you to hear. I'm sorry.
Camps. Nina's family survived, but only barely. And after the war, Nina became a nurse in Ukraine and raised her daughter Lucy as a single mother. Lucy has said, quote, she sacrificed a lot. She had me when she was 18 years old. She came here to give me a good education. She was a very dedicated mother, end quote. In 1979, Nina immigrated to the United States, settling in Brighton Beach, the heart of New York's Russian-speaking community.
In her past, I don't know what that is. It could be past abuse.
So, here's a woman who worked hard, wanted a better life, and wanted a better life for her daughter. And then she immigrated over here, but she was a nurse. And I mean, at a time when really single women were.
Maybe she was abused by her spouse, right? So it could be domestic violence.
So right here now, Dr. John is talking about the roommate, the 95-year-old woman, who was placed in the same room as, unfortunately, the victim. And all they knew was they both basically had dementia.
It could have something.
They didn't know each other. There's apparently no intake. That don't go through doctor's records. I don't know, but this was something. It was totally an act of negligence here, because, and nobody did any due diligence. Nobody checked on anything. And this is why I'm saying we can't just trust the fact that people are in a state facility or private facilities and expect everything to be good. There's only people that run these facilities. And even with the best intentions, you don't know who your roommate is. That's pretty scary.
To do with, I would imagine there might be something territorial here in terms of she's being put in a room with a stranger. And for some reason, for whatever reason, she feels threatened.
So
she's not used to
Nina,
having
the woman that was unalived, had been there longer. This woman had just come in recently.
a roommate. Maybe any roommate would threaten her. Maybe she's not comfortable being around other people. There's so many things here. But I think the essence of this, or the core of this, and my main takeaway that I want to talk about is when we think about female violence, and I get this from the Mott's book and from looking at female violence, which we don't talk about enough, but when you look at it, quite often it does involve past trauma and past abuse that then becomes reenacted in violent crime.
But at 95 years old, what the hell is this woman thinking about, Dr. John?
So do we know anything? Do we know anything about this killer then?
No, we don't. We really don't. So we don't. So I'm speculating here, and I'm just basing this on research and kind of this book by Anna Motz that I've read. But because I think a lot of people are going to be saying, I was asking the question, right? Like, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's dementia, right? Or they'll be saying, why did this?
And again, there is anger things. There's frustration. And, my friend Sylvia, who died, when was it? Yeah, a year ago. Yeah. She was never said a bad word about anybody, was just the most kind-hearted person, basically. And when she had her spells with dementia, she could be nasty, like nasty. She bit somebody. Here's a woman, wouldn't hurt a fly, bit a nurse. I remember because they showed me a picture of the bite. So things happen. I just,
Happen? Like, how is this even possible? So Lucy Flom, who's Nina's daughter, she did some interviews after this happened, and she was just perplexed. Right? She was like, I don't understand. And in many ways, she's right, because given the offender's age and given the fact that she's female, like this, I don't even know. The chances of this happening are way less than 1%. I don't even know, like 1,000th of 1%. The number.
So Dr. John is saying the fact that this woman unalived this other woman in such a way, and at 95 years old, is just completely unheard of. So it makes you wonder, was it this woman? But it says that all evidence shows that it was this woman. So maybe there's cameras. I don't know.
Are astronomical, right? And so for me, when I see something like this, you know that, like, I'm always interested in the outliers, because that's where we can learn.
Right.
That's where we can learn the most, right? So what is it we can learn from this? I mean, one thing is that I think in a nursing home, they're probably, when you put a new patient into a room with a stranger, you should probably vet that person, to I don't know how much, but you should vet them to some degree, so that if there is some past history of abuse or violence, you don't want to put them in a room with someone else, right? So some of this has to be on the nursing home, in the sense
Absolutely.
that they put this offender in the same room with them.
And I agree with that 1,000%. They just go ahead when there's room and they move people over, especially in the memory care unit. And for some reason, they do not want to keep them in their private rooms. And the problem is, a lot of times the people that have dementia, they don't know, like, they're all wearing each other's clothing in these places and everything. They don't remember what's theirs. They fight about the most petty stuff because they're convinced it's their stuff. It's absolutely, it's so sad.
The victim without supervision, right? I'm sure that staff goes in and checks every few hours. I'm not sure what their schedule is. That's typically going to be a part of a nursing home schedule. However, my guess is that the nursing home knew nothing about her history, nothing about her past. Was there any past history of violence? Was there any past traumas? Were there any past traumas? Were there any past history of abuse?
Yeah, because of neglect on not looking. Nobody looked into it. I guarantee you, nobody looked into it. And I think that this isn't probably as uncommon as we think. Maybe the DEATH, but I guarantee you they're fighting like this in the nursing homes, because I actually saw and these places, they're not well staffed. They're understaffed, and the people are overworked, and they're underpaid, and it's just horrific, and it's systemic. Again, systemic, in my opinion.
Was there any past history of her being a victim of domestic abuse? Right? Was there any past history of suicidal ideation? Was there any past history of violent ideation? Was there any past history of assaults against other people, assaults towards her? These are all things, right? Was there criminal history, in other words? That's where they act out and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But that's not really true. I mean, every violent crime, almost every violent crime. I mean, there might be a few really outlier exceptions that are like extreme outliers, but almost every violent crime, in order to get to the place where you take a foot pedal off a wheelchair and you bludgeon your roommate repeatedly.
Okay, so that's what this woman did at 95 years old, was take the foot pedal off of a wheelchair, which isn't light, and just beat the hell out of her. My God.
To death. That takes some effort, by the way. It's not that easy to murder. I mean, I've never done it, thankfully, but my understanding is, talking to many homicide detectives, is it's not that simple to like just murder someone, especially if you're 95 years old and you're working with, you have a foot pedal. You have to have some strength to do that.
Right.
And so there's some rage here. People just don't become.
Absolutely. But I wonder what was going on in that woman's head, that 95-year-old woman, to have that rage. If it was all invented in her head, excuse me, if Nina went to take something that she thought was hers or was hers, and maybe this other woman thought it was hers, like, who knows? This is just absolutely a horrific story.
Totally enraged.
I know.
And then murder someone. There's some rage here. And the question is, where is that coming from? It's coming from somewhere. Almost every violent crime involves some type of violent ideation. That part of my job, by the way, is to track that and to try to backtrack. And
how do you figure that out
that
from a
violent ideation coming
95-year-old woman with dementia?
Is it situational? In other words, is it something that maybe Nina did or said that provoked something in the offender? I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's still murder, but like, or is it something more permanent? Is it something to do with her personality? Does this roommate Galena have a history of violence? Does she have a history? Does she assaulted other people? Does she have no empathy? Right? Like, is she coming into that room?
You see what I'm saying? Like, we've talked about this before. I talked about this on a few of all the channels now, about it. If people are born without a conscience, right? So now Dr. John is telling, that's his wife. Dr. John is telling his wife, maybe perhaps she's psychopathic.
Right.
Is she coming into that room with a history of violence and even, let's say, psychopathy, where she has no remorse, no conscience, right? I don't know. Maybe you're putting a psychopath, a 95-year-old psychopath in a room with someone.
That's it.
Right. There's not a lot of
that's what we want to know. That's what I would want to know. But you'd want to know that. It's one thing to want to know that now, after this horrific murder's been committed, because ultimately, when you look at punishment here too, like, what are you going to do with a 95-year-old offender that's demented?
Bingo.
Well,
now look at where they have this woman. Okay, she's 95 years old. And now this is a whole other topic too. This is the flip side to this. 95 years old. Supposedly she has dementia. And now she's put, wait till you hear where she's put. So imagine this. I mean, is she really responsible at 95 years old with dementia for the crime at hand? That's a question, right?
What's a little bit shocking too, and I want to go back to the demented thing, because I actually have questions about the dementia and what that could have done. But you asking, what do you do? She's right now being held at Rikers without bail. And that's notoriously like a bad prison. So a 95-year-old woman who indeed, all evidence points to her being a violent murderer now,
right?
But do we hold a 95-year-old woman with dementia at a notoriously horrendous prison without bail? Is that
so? She can't be around general population, because in all honesty, their job is to protect her. So she's somebody that's going to spend 23 hours in a room, and maybe that's the best place for her. I don't know what goes on in her mind, but here's the thing. Severe dementia like that, somebody who they would deem as violent, somebody with rage that must have some sort of strength, obviously, right? Or at least stamina. Do they put her in a room and close the door forever? Because, I mean, she's 95. They don't have the staff in a prison to do that, to take care of a 95-year-old woman's health, as well as the dementia part. I don't think, especially now. I mean, I know that people get dementia in prison, but they tend to grow in that environment, and they tend not to move people around with dementia. So do they invite this in there? No. I mean, it's weird. What do you guys think? I would like to know what you think. Please, you could check out Dr. John, and I'm sorry, his wife, oh gosh, forget her name. Lauren, isn't it Lauren? I'm pretty sure. Hidden True Crime. And yeah, check out this story. This is something else, isn't it? Everybody's got a story to tell with Toddy One Skip, but this story isn't one that I want to know about or anything, guys. You know, this is a topic. So let's talk about it in the comments. Tell me what you think. What should they do with the 95-year-old woman that did that? And obviously, what should we do to prevent something like that? And how many of these horrible acts do you think fall through the cracks and nobody ever knows about it because of lawsuits or whatever else? Everybody has a story to tell. Toddy One Skip. Please like, subscribe, and share it. Thank you, as always, for allowing me to be part of your day. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Bing, boing, bing. Everybody has a story to tell with Toddy One Skip.